doing, everybody? My name is Maceo Berry, and today I am with former Major League Baseball player Ron Rightnowar, played with the Milwaukee Brewers, had a lengthy career in the minor leagues. He's a Toledo legend in the baseball. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Good to have you here because you're the first baseball player on the show.
Hey, it's good. Always good to be first,
so
right?
You got to tap yourself on the shoulder. Now, you played at Whitmer High School in the 80s. What was the competition like at that time?
Baseball in Toledo has always been pretty strong. We had a really good team back in those areas. Coach Rob Rose was my high school coach, and he coached for a long time there. And I can just remember that my sophomore year, we were in the state Final Four and lost in the semifinals. And we just won 20 games a year for a lot of years. That was kind of the standard back then. Start was very strong. That was up-and-coming program. Coach Arbinger at Start was building a dynasty. Ended up being even national champions at one point. So baseball through the 80s and 90s in Toledo has been very good.
After high school, you went off to college. Did major league teams offer you a contract, or you decided that you're just going to go off to college and see how that'll fare?
Yeah, I was probably an underdeveloped pitcher when I was a kid. I was just out of high school, was a tall, skinny kid, probably as tall as I am right now, but thin and needed to grow and mature. So went to Eastern Michigan and played 4 years of varsity ball at Eastern. Played a lot of great competition there, and was fortunate enough to be signed to the pro contract after my senior year by the Tigers, which was cool growing up around here and going to the Mud Hen games and things as a kid. And then, of course, following the Tigers all the way, from the time I was little. To be signed by them was a big thrill, and it was a lot of fun. That first year, I think in 1986, I signed. My first year was 87. I went to spring training for the first time in 87.
Take us back to the day that you was offered a contract. Was that the best day of your life?
I almost didn't want to believe it. I kind of had to pinch myself that it was actually happening. It wasn't some big bonus baby or anything like that, and it didn't really matter to me because I was happy to just have the opportunity. Didn't get a big signing bonus or anything like that you hear about today, but it was met with Coach Scout for the Tigers, Ken Medea, brought the contract, we signed the terms, and off I went to my first season of A-ball.
You played at Lakeland?
First season I played in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which was pretty cool because that's, if anybody knows, is the home of Fort Bragg, one of the largest military institutions on the East Coast. And there's, a couple 100,000 Marines in Fayetteville. That's why we were called the Generals. And the neat thing about that was it was a first-year franchise there. They'd never had a team in Fayetteville before. So we were kind of rock, even though we were nobodies, little rookie ball, A-ball players. It was a big deal in Fayetteville because the town came out to support us. They had a brand new stadium. It was a new team, and so we were treated like rock stars a little bit. And that even at that low level of minor leagues, it was a lot of fun.
What was the capacity crowd like at that time?
When we do the big promotions like they still do in the minor leagues to this day, we'd have the San Diego Chicken would come out, or several other promotions, and there'd be a couple thousand. Not a big crowd, but a couple thousand people would come out. We had good crowds because it was promoted so heavily to support the new team, and made a lot of good friends and good relationships there. And just one of those stops along the minor leagues that, that was low A ball, and you're traveling to every small little town in North and South Carolina and Georgia and playing in all these places just to try and prove you belonged. And there were some great teams in that league. My very first year, the Gastonia Rangers had Sammy Sosa and Juan Gonzalez, and Dean Palmer hit 3, 4, 5 for them, and they weren't very good. They weren't even one of the better teams. Craig Biggio was in the league that year. The Myrtle Beach Blue Jays had a team full of future major league players, Junior Felix and Mark Witten and Doug Linton, and they just had Luis Soho, just some names people might remember, but they were all on this low A ball team. We were all just young kids just getting started.
Did y'all, like you and your teammates, did y'all get along well, and did y'all do a lot of peer activities?
Oh yeah, we did. We make friends like on any team, but it's not like your high school team or your college team where you're with those guys all the time. In pro ball, it's different. guys come from everywhere, and everybody's been pretty successful, or they wouldn't be at that level, wouldn't have gotten signed. So, you know, you're kind of thrust into it's a professional situation, and it is very performance based. I mean, you got to perform or you're gone, and that's the thing. You might be with your buddy or your roommate on the road, and the next day he's going home or traded or something. You have to kind of be ready. So it becomes very much business, and it's your job to perform and to play the game of baseball the best way you know how and to get better. And that's what the minor leagues is all about, is really improving and getting enough experience so that you're getting ready to make a push for that big league team.
In your biggest promotion, you went to Double-A ball. How did you find out? Did they call you, or did the manager call you into the dugout and tell you?
Yeah. My second year, I came back and I got promoted, but I promoted to High A, which was Lakeland, which is where the spring training facility is, and played a season in the Florida State League, which is a step up in talent, and the stadiums are beautiful. They're all the spring training facilities, so you're playing in big league ballparks with big league surface and everything. It was beautiful. It was hot, but it was beautiful. And and then my third year, when I reported to spring training, was when I was assigned to the Double-A team, and I still had to make the team. I was able to make the team as the 12th guy on a 12-man pitching staff, so I was the last guy to make the roster, but I did make the roster my third year, and that was the biggest jump, because if you know anything about the minor leagues, all of the team franchises in Major League Baseball have 3 or 4 A-ball teams, and those 3 or 4 teams funnel down to one Double-A team. So every Major League team has one Double-A and one Triple-A, but it starts out with 3, 4, maybe even 5 A-ball teams. So you got a roster, roster of 5 teams vying for that, all trying to get promoted to that one Double-A team. So the funnel narrows very quickly at Double-A. So there's a big jump, and a lot of people believe, I personally believe, it was the biggest jump. Even in some ways bigger than Triple-A to the big leagues, is the jump from A-ball to Double-A. Once you've reached kind of Double-A, you're starting to show the Major League club clearly thinks you have some ability, and you're moving forward toward your ultimate goal. That's why most dreams die in A-ball. Most guys don't get out of A-ball, but if you happen to get out of A-ball onto that Double-A roster, man, the talent is pretty special. That's where, my first game in Double-A, we're playing, and again, we opened a brand new franchise in London, Ontario. It was the London Tigers, Double-A team. The town was excited because the Tigers were in town. They had minor league baseball for the first time, so there was a lot of buzz and a lot of activity, and we were treated really well. And the very opening night was kind of like today, a very cold night in April, and we were playing the Albany Colony Yankees. So opening up with the Yankees and leading off playing center field was Deion Sanders. And, I just remember that night because a good friend of mine from Eastern Michigan started for us that night, and they were loaded. That Double-A team was loaded. They had Jim Laritz and a bunch of guys who played in the big leagues, Bernie Williams, and several others. Well, that night was a good game. I think we lost 5-4. Our starting pitcher, my buddy from Eastern, went 5 innings, and I pitched the last 4 innings. So I was the first guy out of the bullpen that night, pitched the last 4 innings. Deion went 4 for 4 and had 2 of the most unbelievable catches in center field you ever want to see to save the game. One of them was a shot in the gap that I'm not sure another human being could have ever gotten to. And he ran it down and caught it and slammed into the wall, and that was the game, and they beat us. But it was just an amazing feat. He was the most amazing athlete that I've ever seen on a baseball field, for sure.
In Double-A talent, or just
everywhere, and at any level. Deion Sanders was a special gift, special gifts, and he was really good in baseball. As great as he was in football, Hall of Famer, he was really talented in baseball too, and he was special.
Was there a batter that you feared most in Double-A?
In Double-A, yeah. We played the Canton Akron Indians at that time, and the Canton team was Jim Thome. And if you remember Jim Thome, and he was a big dude and hit from the left side. So as a right-handed pitcher, lefties give us a little bit of trouble, and him particularly for me, because he stood right on top of the plate, and you really needed to be able to beat him inside. But if you missed out over the plate at all, he would just launch it. And He was a tough out. I hit him several times because I was trying to get the ball in there, and I either hit him or walked him usually. So he was a tough out. But that whole league was just filled with maybe as much talent. It's raw and it's unpolished, it's uncut, so you get some rough cut diamonds in there, but extremely talented. And at times I felt a little over my skis, so to speak, in that league because it was tough.
What was your preparation before you had an outing, as far as like warming up, or do you have any rituals?
Every level has pitching coaches, and we had, the pitchers and the position players in pro ball a little bit separate than every other level of baseball, where everybody kind of when you're not pitching, you're playing shortstop, or you may be playing outfield. Once you get into pro ball, the pitchers are the pitchers, the position players, so we're separate. So we got a group of 10 to 12 guys, and the pitching coach is really in charge of us. And he would make us, we were doing a lot of running, a lot of training, a lot of core work with the medicine ball, sit-ups and crunches and those kind of things to keep the core strong so you could, perform and throw the ball the way you should be able to. So it was kind of, we work out in the morning. Typically we get up, go work out, lift some weights, run, maybe do some physical stuff, and then go have lunch, rest, get to the ballpark, 3 o'clock, start getting ready for batting practice and go about the game. So every day is a full-time job. People don't understand. They show up and say, man, what a great job you have. You only, a couple hours at the ballpark. Well, it's a full day of work. It is still baseball related. You do get paid to play baseball. I'm not saying that. It's a wonderful thing and a blessing. But, you work hard because you have to, because the competition is so strong that if you slip up at all, there's another guy ready to take your job. So it's very much, you got to be on point and ready to go.
There are a lot of worrying about, okay, one day I could be here, then one day I'm here, and
oh yeah, a lot of pressure. And from my early part of my career, I felt that pressure too much. I mean, I think I was worried. What am I going to do? I don't want to get released. You see guys get released, and you're done. The dream is over. As long as you still got the uniform, you have a chance. And I was a guy that I was never going to be. That guy that they were looking at, that top prospect or anything like that. I was a guy who had to earn it. I had to grind my way through the minor leagues and prove myself. And so you're just trying to earn enough opportunities to show them that, hey, I can get it done. And I needed that time, frankly, to improve. I wasn't good enough to pitch in the big leagues at that time. I had some improving to do. So it's really just about working hard and earning enough time to make the improvement I needed to make to be ready to make that step to the big leagues.
Were you ecstatic when you got called to AAA Toledo?
It was a great day because I spent that third year in AA, came back for my fourth year, and went back to AA. That first year in AA, I didn't have a very good year, and so I went back to AA, and after the first month of that season in 1990, I was leading all of AA, all of the minor leagues in appearances. I was mainly a closer, setup guy, and spot starter. Did a little bit of everything, but I was leading all of AA in appearances. And one of the guys here in Toledo was struggling, and there was a lockout that year. If fans remember that there was a lockout in 1990, and the players were locked out of spring training, so they got a late start. So some of the pitchers didn't really get ready for the season to start. And one of the guys was struggling here. Wanted to send him down so he could, relax and get his act together at a lower level. So they brought me up. So I got called up to play, and it was unbelievable because I got to come home and play at home. I played for my hometown Toledo Mud Hens. My family's here, my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters, everybody. And I used to be that little kid that used to go to those Mud Hen camps. I went to those camps when I was a little kid, looking up at the Mud Hen players and watching them. They were teaching us how to play shortstop and all that stuff. And now here I am, all these years later, I'm the one in the Mud Hen uniform, looking at all these little kids and trying to help them learn. So it was an amazing blessing. And then spent parts of the next 4 years with the Mud Hens from 90 to 93 until I was traded playing for the Hens.
How was the traveling like in AAA? Did you guys ride on the bus a lot, or did you do a lot of planes?
Well, it's a step up. Up until you get to AAA, it's all buses. I don't know what they're doing now. I'm assuming that it's probably still the same because they have to save money. They don't make a ton of money in the lower minor leagues, so they want to save that money. So, but when you get to AAA, you get to fly some. So you get to fly, but you still bus between cities a little bit. But we would always leave early in the morning, early morning flights to, we had to get up 5 in the morning, get out to Toledo Express and jump on a plane, usually fly to Pittsburgh, and then jump on another plane in Pittsburgh and go to wherever we were going, and then maybe a 10-day road trip, and we would bus around between the cities on the road trip and then fly back home. So it was nice, you get to fly, because by the time I was done with AA, I don't think I could ride another bus. If I had to ride another bus, I think I would have jumped off a bridge or something, because I was done with riding buses.
What was your favorite AAA city?
Favorite AAA city? There were some really fun ones. I like Buffalo a lot, because Buffalo at that time and still today had a big league stadium. I mean, most AAA stadiums, this is beautiful now, and when I was playing, there were a few new ballparks like this, but not many. They were just kind of starting to change them all over. Norfolk had a nice new stadium, but my first year in AAA, we played in the old Tidewater Field, which was kind of like Skeldon, just an old ballpark. But Buffalo was a legitimate big league park, because I think at one point or another they had the ability to expand the stadium. If they would ever get a major league team, they could have turned it into a major league park. So it was beautiful.
What about Pawtucket?
Pawtucket was, Pawtucket. It was absolutely unique. You go there and they would hang over the milk bottles with a card in it so you could sign. The fans were up above and the dugouts were underneath the stands, so they're always hanging, all these buckets hanging to get autographs. That's how people there got autographs. And just a nostalgic old East Coast ballpark. East Coast has a whole different feel. The people up there are a lot different than they are in the Midwest, and a little more hardcore, a little more grizzled. In some ways more knowledgeable and they're more passionate about their baseball. So you got to play it right or they're going to be on you. So, you got to be ready to go.
You was in there at the right time, because a lot of guys you played with in the 80s and 90s were stars in the major leagues in the 90s and going on to the 2000s. Who were some guys that you knew that were going to be star quality once they reached the majors? Yeah,
Dion was hard to take your eyes off of on the field. He was spectacular. The Bernie Williamses, Craig Biggio, as I mentioned earlier, for Pawtucket, for the Red Sox coming up. Mo Vaughn, Maurice Vaughn was just out of Seton Hall, out of college, and you could tell that he was going to be a star.
Yeah, that guy was like 6'1", 270.
Albert Bell, Indians fans may remember, he was Joey Bell back then. He's coming out of LSU, had some difficulties with some substance abuse stuff, and the psychiatrist decided they probably should change his name, change his personality. We're going to get a fresh start, so he kind of rebranded himself as Albert, which was his middle name, and so he became Albert Bell, and I pitched against him a ton. Carlos Baerga, all those Indians guys, Carlos Baerga, Kenny Lofton, all of them, coming through the minor leagues were Sammy Sosa, Juan Gonzalez, just tons of guys, that you saw that had Jason Giambi, was just a great hitter. You knew he was going to be good. It didn't matter really, it's just a matter of when. You knew that they were going to all play in the big leagues and do a great job.
You weren't nervous as far as getting promoted and demoted. You just knew you was going to be here to stay.
Yeah, no, at that level, you're there because they think you can do it. Obviously, you have the ability, or you wouldn't be there. Trust me. Once they decide you can't do it, you're gone. And but I knew I had the ability. I had to get better. I had to improve, but I was getting better, and I could see myself improving, and so I never felt I had to take a back seat to anybody. I was ready to compete with those guys. They're all guys my age, and they put their uniform on the same way I do. I got ability, they got ability. Let's go find out who's better today. Tomorrow you might get me. Today I'm getting you. That's the way it is, and it was a lot of fun.
Who are you closest to the most on your team with the Mud Hens?
Oh my, had some great teammates over the years. With the Mud Hens, I remember Buddy Groom was a left-handed pitcher. We used to hang out a lot together. Dean DeSilla, Scott Livingstone played third base for the Tigers. He was my pool shooting partner. We used to go out after the games and stuff and get something to eat and shoot some pool. And he was from Texas A&M, and he was really good. And I like to shoot pool too, so we'd go partner up and hold table all night and just have some fun. But just so many guys, great relationships, and that's what makes it so hard. Because then I was married by that time when we got to Toledo, and the wives get because when we're on the road, the wives only have each other. They may be from all over the country, and they're plopped in Toledo wherever minor league team they're playing at, and they really only have each other. They don't know anybody in this city that they're in, and so they bond together, and then all of a sudden, and so it's oftentimes really hard on them. The ladies that get connected and they do stuff together while we're on the road with the kids, and then all of a sudden somebody gets traded or they get released and they're just gone, and that relationship is just kind of ripped away from them. And that can be really hard so it's hard to get close to people. But you remain friends. The great thing about today with the social media and Facebook and all that stuff, I've reconnected with a bunch of my old teammates, and we talk, and it's pretty neat to hear what they're doing now. But it's tough. Minor leagues is tough, and it takes a strong will to survive it.
Did you ever pitch in the Dominican or South America during the winter?
I did. And after the '93 season, the season I got traded, I was pitching really well with the Mud Hens. And it was pretty apparent that the Major League Leagues at the time, Sparky Anderson was the manager, and they didn't have any plans for me, and that was pretty clear. I was pitching pretty well, and so I just really begged them to let me look around and see if there was another organization that might be interested in giving me a shot. And I think at the time they said they didn't think there would be anybody, so they said, yeah, go ahead and look. And then sure enough, the Brewers were interested. They orchestrated. I remember we were playing in Richmond. I was with the Hens, and we were in Richmond playing the Braves. And I was down in the bullpen, and they called me in from the bullpen and told me that I'd been traded. And I left right then. I packed up my stuff in the locker room right in the middle of the game, went to the airport, and flew out to New Orleans to meet the Brewers AAA team in Oklahoma City, I think we flew into. And I met the team there, and man, it was a new lease on life for me, And so it was awesome. And then, the pitching for the Brewers was a new lease on life. I had a new opportunity, and did really well. Made the AAA All-Star game the next year in '94, and then was going to be called up when the strike of '94 hit. And it was just horrible timing.
And I know that made you sick.
August 12th, 1994. I'll never forget it. I had made the AAA All-Star game, pitched very well. It looked like I was going to get called up. They had called. They were trying to figure out a way to get me on the 40-man roster to make that happen. Then the strike hit, and they said, don't worry about it. And I was upset, and I was disappointed, and I felt like, I finally got myself into position to earn a shot, and then there was no baseball. And they said, well, if it gets resolved, we'll call you up in September. And we know there was no September, there was no October, no World Series, and the season was washed out, and that opportunity was gone.
When did they come up with an agreement to lift the lockout?
The strike, yeah, it didn't really happen. That whole winter, it was an ugly winter, and I played in Venezuela after that '93 season, after I got traded over there because of, the strike was going on. So I went to Venezuela and played with Maglio Ordonez was one of my teammates, and Marcos Armas and some guys down there. It was a great experience. By the time I came back, they were kind of talking about it. After the '94 season, I played in the Dominican. I played in Santiago, and my team in Santiago was unbelievable. Tony Pena was my catcher. Alex Arias from the Marlins, big league third baseman for the Marlins, was our third baseman. Felix Fermin was the shortstop. Kilvio Veras from the Mets.
He used to play with the Padres.
The Mets was our second baseman. We had Domingo Martinez, who played with the Blue Jays at first. Had Stan Javier, Luis Polonia, Moises Alou, and Manny Ramirez were our outfielders. And Manny lived right next door to me. Manny and I got to be really close and good friends, and I loved that guy. He was an amazing hitter. And, he's just, that whole thing of Manny being Manny, that's just how he was. He was just kind of laid back, and, nothing really bothered him, and he just got up there and just could flat out hit.
What's your favorite Manny story? Because everybody always has something different to say.
My favorite Manny story actually had nothing to do with being on the field. Like I said, we roomed right next door. My room was right next to his. My wife and I were staying with the kids in one room in a hotel, and he was right next door. And we had a van that was just available. There's only 6 American guys on the team, and everybody else is from the Dominican. So that van was really kind of for us to go around town and do what we needed to do and go here and there. Well, Manny asked if he could borrow the van one day. He needed to go somewhere, so he said, sure, but you need to be back by such and such time because we're all planning on going to the beach. We were going, it's an off day or something. And, you know, we're all sitting down there, you know, these 6 Americans with their families and their kids in the lobby of the hotel waiting for the van, looking at the guy. No Manny. You know, Manny comes rolling in about 2 hours late, you know, after we've been sitting there for a while at the hotel, because we got no ability to go anywhere without that van. And Manny comes back, he says, oh, I'm sorry, I got held up, you know. So he judges how he was. He kind of operated on his own timing and his own time frame, and I kind of loved him for it. Though everybody thought he was lazy. He wasn't lazy. He was just that laid back and that talented.
And you came back to the major leagues. You had a complicated call-up.
Yeah, oh yeah. Complicated to say the least.
Kind of a circuitous route. How did you find out that you were going to be a replacement player?
Well, I said no. All that off season, they're talking about the strike may continue, and the teams all said, well, we're gonna bring up minor league guys and play them anyway. It was just a ploy. We were all kind of pawns in the game between the ball teams and the union, you know. So we're all stuck in the middle, and I knew that I was right on the bullseye of it because I had that experience in '94. I was a AAA All-Star game. I was expected to make the Brewers team, but I was old enough now. I was 28 years old. I knew they didn't have to put me on the 40-man roster to protect. Had I been put on the 40-man roster, I would have been out on strike with them too. But I wasn't on the roster, so therefore, since I wasn't, if you're not on the roster, you're not protected by the union. So I wasn't in the union yet because I hadn't spent any time in the big leagues. So I was on the outside of it, so I had to report. And so, you know, the GM, Sal Bando's coming to me. Phil Garner was, manager of the Tigers, but he was our manager in Milwaukee at the time. You know, they'd come over to my locker in minor league camp and say, you know, we need you to come over and play. When the regular guys get back, we need to see you pitch. And so, you know, when they get back, we know what you can do, and you'll be ready to make the club. So I told them I'm not playing. You know, if they start the season with replacement players, I was not going to start the season. I'll play in the spring training games because I was supposed to be playing in them anyway. I was a non-roster invitee to big league camp. I was going to be there anyway. I just wasn't on the roster. So really, for me, I just felt like I need to go show them what I can do. This is my shot. I need to go show them what I can do. While I had no intention of crossing, if they started the regular season, I wasn't going to do it. And I had told them I wasn't going to. So I pitched in those spring training games, and of course the union labeled us all scabs and whatever else they wanted to say. But it really wasn't true. I was just over getting my work in like I normally would have been, whether the other guys were there or not. But it was just posturing and negotiations to get this thing resolved. And ultimately they did. They never started the season with the replacement players like everybody knew they wouldn't. And the regular guys came back and had an extended spring training, got ready to go, and they started the season. But I had to go to AAA to kind of wait for them to get ready. So I was in AAA, pitching very well, leading all of AAA in appearances and in saves. I had 10 saves in the first month of the season in '95. And then when the regular guys came back, they started the season, but I was in AAA. And then some guys, again, were struggling a little bit. They wanted to make a change and bring me up. So I got the call on May 19th, 1995. You know, manager of the AAA team, Chris Bando, called me and said, well, you got the call. Congratulations, you're going to the big leagues. And I made my major league debut the next night in Texas against the Rangers.
What was your emotions when your AAA manager told you?
I was waiting. I had heard that it was coming, and we were in New Orleans. I was in my apartment with my wife, and I just couldn't take it. I was sitting around waiting for the phone. Here I'm going to get called up. I'm waiting for him to call me. No phone call, and I couldn't take it. I just told my wife, I got to go for a run. So I actually went out and ran on the levee around Lake Pontchartrain. Just went for a long run, just to burn up some energy because I was dying. Didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And I got back, and he had called while I was out on my run. And my wife knew it, and he had told her, don't tell him I'm going to call him back. So he called me back and said that, you know, indeed I'd been called up, and it was a thrill, man. It was a long, hard-fought journey, but it was so rewarding. You know, it's like, you know, you're climbing that mountain, you're not sure, and I quit 1,000 times. In that 7 years, I'm not going to be good enough. I just wanted to quit, wanted to go home, get a job, do my thing, but I couldn't quit. I told my team, there's no quit in me, and I don't know how to quit. I'm not quitting. I'm going to go until they rip it off my back. And was fortunate enough to get the call and spend a year in all the parks and just have that one glorious year of pitching in the big leagues. And it was a great dream come true.
Your first major league appearance was against what team and where?
It was in Texas. If you've ever seen the movie The Rookie, the Jimmy Morris story, well, the last half hour of that movie was really my story. When he shows up, and it's exactly the same way. In fact, when I watched it, I got a tear in my eye watching it, because he shows up at the ballpark at Arlington, gets out of the cab and looks at he's outside the stadium looking at the stadium. He can't hardly believe that he's there. And that was the same way I felt. And I went in and showed up in the clubhouse and went out there, took batting practice, and watched the stadium fill up. And all of a sudden, it's not a stadium like this one. I mean, it's a stadium that's completely enclosed all the way around, three decks high, and you're like, wow, and I felt like a 12-year-old little boy in some ways, but I had a job to do. So I didn't get in that first night, but the next night I got the call, and it was a great story because the game started, there was a little chippiness. Our starting pitcher, Bill Wegman, had hit one of their guys, and the game was under a warning because it looked like he did it on purpose. I think he did. And so it was under a warning. Later on in the game, Wegman hit another guy and got thrown out. And I came up the 19th, and a young little left-hander, Sid Roberson, little left-handed guy, came up that day. So he had just got there the day after I did. He's a young kid, 21 years old, 22. And we're sitting out in the bullpen watching all this. Pitcher gets thrown out. We got to have a pitcher. They call Sid, you're up, you're in the game. So he didn't get a chance to warm up. He has to go on the field and warm up. Rookie, 21 years old, making his major league debut and all this craziness on the road. The fans are going nuts. So he goes out there, he's warming up, and I remember he's pitching to Mark McLemore. And I think he got an out or two. He's pitching to Mark McLemore, only like his third hitter in his major league debut. And he hit Mark McLemore in the foot with a curveball. And they threw him out. The only guy that I know of in Major League history to get thrown out of a game in his Major League debut. And so now he's thrown out, and now my manager, Phil Garner comes flying out of the dugout, and he's just going crazy on the umpire. He gets thrown out, and we're all sitting on the bullpen and go, wow, this is, and the phone rings. Right now, you're in the game. And now I'm sitting there with my jacket on, and here I go make my Major League debut, right? So I go running out there, and of course the whole replacement thing, and I was the first one called up in the whole major leagues that played in those replacement games. So I was the bullseye, I was the pariah, I was the guy that everybody, what's going to happen with this guy? Nothing happened, but as I was running out through the outfield wall to go run out the field to go get warmed up, they play the Beatles. I can still hear it in my head. He's a real nowhere man. So, I was really on an island. I was really by myself. So I ran out to the mound, and Drew Kosk is standing there on the mound. He's just one of those arrogant big league umpires. He's tossing the ball up and down, and he gets there and he looks at me, and he knows who I am. Everybody knew who I was, and he looks at me and he tosses me the ball and he says, "Don't hit anybody, or you're gone too." And I'm like, okay. I wasn't worried about hitting anybody. I was worried about just hitting the backstop. I was so nervous. And I literally did feel like a little kid. And I looked in there, and I was happy to see that it was Rusty Greer was the first guy I was going to meet, because he was a rookie for the Rangers. And I had faced him a ton the previous year in AAA and done pretty well against him. So I was a familiar guy. I knew I could get him out, got him out, and then got my first strikeout against Otis Nixon. And was off. And I went 2 2/3, I think, and gave up maybe a single run, but I pitched very well in that debut, and I was happy it was over, man, because I was so nervous.
Did you keep your game ball?
Oh yeah. I got 2 wins, and I got 2 wins and a save in my year in the big leagues, and my first one was 5 days later. After that, my second outing was in Cleveland against the unbeatable Cleveland Indians that year of '95. You remember they didn't lose very much at home. That was Kenny Lofton and Baerga and Vizquel and Manny and Dave Winfield and Tomey, and they were loaded. Albert Bell. And I came into that game to pitch to Tony Pena, was their catcher. that night. He was a backup, but he was in the game that night. I came in to pitch him. He was just my catcher in winter ball. So it was great that I came in to pitch to him too, and I struck him out. And then I proceeded to hit Dave Winfield, and so I thought he was coming. That dude was a monster. But it was just a great experience. I went, I don't know, 4 innings or something like that in the middle. We took the lead, and I got my first big league win at the Jake versus the Indians with about 40 of my family and friends in the stands. It was awesome.
Who was the first person to greet you when you got called up to the major leagues?
Some of my roommates from AAA the previous year, Steve Sparks, you remember
Yeah,
Steve
he played
Sparks?
with the Tigers.
The knuckleballer.
Knuckleballer,
Yeah, the knuckleballer with the Tigers, who had a great career. We were rookies together in Milwaukee and really good friends. He was a really good buddy of mine. And my roommate and Mike Matheny was on that team, the manager of the Cardinals. Mike Matheny, when I was in Milwaukee, was my roommate on the road. So we were roommates, and Mike was there, and Jeff Cirillo, all these guys that I had played with the previous year in AAA were in Milwaukee because we were a young team, kind of rebuilding. So those guys were all happy for me. They knew the story. They knew how long I was in the minor leagues and grinding, trying to get there. So they were all really happy for me. It was great.
How was it pitching at the old Milwaukee County?
Oh, it was great. It was really big. It was a nice place, actually. It was pretty nice. It was old, but seeing Billy Brewer slide down the slide into the mug of beer like they do now, it's all fancy now. But the old county stadium was pretty neat. Every time a home run was hit by the Brewers, he'd slide down the slide, and it was cool. And the brat races that we have out here, bratwurst and Polish sausage and Italian sausage or something like that, and they'd race around the field. And Bob Euchre was our radio guy, traveled with us, so he was hilarious, just like he was on TV, just a funny guy. He would ride his Harley Davidson into the stadium every day, because Harley Davidson is based in Milwaukee. So, he had his the gas tank was painted like a Louisville Slugger, and he would ride that thing with his glasses and cool. He was the coolest. Hey, Ronnie. Good to see you. He was a funny guy, and but he broadcast all our games, so he traveled with us and everything. It was a lot of fun.
Did you ever pitch at Tiger Stadium?
I did a couple of times, and I got to face my old teammate Travis Fryman and Cecil Fielder and all those guys I grew up, kind of idolizing and watching, and gave up a grand slam to Alan Trammell. I think it might have been his last year or one of his last years. I fell behind him and hung a split finger to him, and he hit it and went just over the wall in left field for a grand slam. And I pitched okay. Other than that, I did okay. But I used to work out with Tram when I was coming up through minor leagues. I used to drive up to Tiger Stadium, and we used to work out, him and Frank Tanana and Gibson and all those guys. We used to work out together. So. I told him the next day, I said, "Come on, Tram, why you got to do that to me?" And he said, "Friends is friends, but business is business," was a quote he said to me. So it was great, and it's good to see my old pitching coaches were up there. Jeff Jones, who's the pitching coach for the Tigers now, was my pitching coach here with the Mud Hens, and we were really close when I was pitching for the Hens. And he was always a supporter of mine, so he was happy to see me up there, and I still stay in contact with him to this day. And he's just a great guy.
I must know this. Did you ever pitch at Fenway and Yankee Stadium?
I pitched at Fenway and Yankee Stadium. Yes. I did. I pitched at Fenway on a night in 1995, the night that they clinched a playoff spot. So I came into the game. I was pitching really well. I came into the game, I think, with runners on second and third, and no, it was first and second, nobody out, I think. And Dwayne Hosey, who was on my all-star team with me, was bunting, so he came up to bunt. He bunted it back to me. I fielded, threw him out, so second and third, one out, and it was a one-run game. They were up 3-2, okay? 3-2, but it's the 8th inning, I think. Place is packed. The mounted police are on horseback lining the field so people don't rush the field because they're going to win the division tonight. And so it's energy packed, and the game's on the line right here. We're down a run. It's my job to keep us in it. So I field the bunt, get the out, second and third, one out. Mo Vaughn comes up, and Garner has me intentionally walk him, so we walk Vaughn to load the bases. And Jose Canseco, they pinch hit Jose Canseco to come up. So Garner makes a trip out to talk to me. He tells me, now just tie him up inside, use that good sinker and tie him up inside and see if we can't get a double play. All right, and I played with Ozzie the year before. Jose's twin brother was on my team. And he didn't look anything like Jose. And we all know why now after the steroid stuff and all that. But Ozzie was his identical twin and was a much more normal-sized human being. Jose was massive, okay? His arms were as big as my thighs. And he comes up there, and he was at the tail end of his career. He wasn't quite as intimidating as he was earlier in his career, but he was still Jose Canseco. And so I threw a few pitches, got ahead of him, and I came in with a sinker right on his hands, and just he swung hard. It jammed him. His bat snapped in half. The barrel of the bat went to shortstop, and the ball just trickled right through. Third baseman dove, missed it. Shortstop dove and missed it. It just made it right between the shortstop and third baseman, and the run scored, and the place just went. Rah. The whole place just erupted, and I was like, I made a perfect pitch, the exact pitch I want to make. It just got through, and they scored, and I got the next guy out, and I came off the field, and I was throwing the ball really well, and I really didn't feel like it got to me or anything like that. I did my job. It just didn't work out. And I got to the dugout, and Sparky was the first one to meet me, Steve Sparks, and I looked at him and I said, "Was that it? Was that as loud as I think it was?" He looked at me and he says, "Oh my gosh, it was loud." Because when that roar went up, you just feel like you'd like shiver your bones. So it was just amazing. Memory. Went out and saw the big wall, the big green monster,
Yeah.
and see the dents in the wall and all that stuff. And it was old, dumpy, old, beat up stadium underneath. Clubhouse was nasty. It was kind of minor league-ish, frankly. You're like, wow, this is the big leagues, you know? But it was old. But then you go down the steps, long flight of steps to the dugout, and when I came up out of the third base dugout onto the playing field, it looked like church, man. It was like, it was the chapel of baseball. It was just pristine and as beautiful as you could ever imagine. And it was amazing. Those memories I'll never forget. It was amazing.
Once the season was over, did you second guess your future, or you just kind of just?
No, not really. I got involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and was approached about establishing an area directorship in Northwest Ohio, and I felt called by God to do that. We went about the business. I was planning on going back and playing ball, but as the off season wore on, I kind of just felt like, I did it. I didn't have any other mountain to climb. I didn't have any delusions about playing 10 years in the big leagues or anything like that. I probably wasn't good. I was a guy that would have bounced back and forth between AAA and the big leagues. Maybe I'd have got 2-3 years in, who knows. But I was done. I accomplished my goal. I did what nobody thought I could do. Even my family and friends probably thought I was a little crazy and didn't think it could happen, but it happened. We made it happen. God blessed it, and it was just the trip of a lifetime. My life's never been the same as a result. Nobody could ever take it away from me. I pitched in the big leagues and to this day, and I do interviews like this, just because of it. So it was a testament to perseverance, and I'm proud of that. But I got a lot of good help along the way from some really good people.
Now, on the current state of Major League Baseball, do you want to see any rule changes as far as speeding up the pace of the game?
No, I'm old school, man. Leave the game alone. Again, there's nothing wrong with the game. The people who think baseball is boring don't understand baseball. You got to keep it moving. The guys getting out of the box after every pitch and everything. I think you can get them in the box. And I think you could do something about that. They don't need to get out and do their gloves and all that stuff every pitch. Every third pitch or something, maybe you want to make it a fine. But every pitch, it's gotten a little bit out of hand. So they need to clean that up. But the game is fine. It's the greatest game ever played. It puts you in situations where you have to be mentally tough like nothing I ever seen before, and because nobody can help you. Nobody can help you catch it. Nobody can help you at the plate. It's on you. You got to do it. And so I think it's fine. I think they just need to make sure they protect the players. I like the change they made with the collision at home plate. I never did quite understand why that was allowed. I know it was kind of old school and that's based. But it's just dumb. It really can, as we've seen with Buster Posey and other guys, it can ruin Ray Fosse. It can ruin guys' careers, and that's not what it's about. It's unnecessary. It doesn't have to be. So I was glad to see them protect the catchers a little bit and make that a little different. So I like it. I don't think it needs to change. For people who don't necessarily are casual fans of baseball, don't really get it, I encourage you to go to the Mud Hen games and watch. And learn the little things, because it really is chess. It's not check. People think it's checkers. No, it's chess. There's all kinds of things going through the manager's mind. all kinds of things going through the play. And every pitch, every situation changes the situation. So you really have to understand what you're doing to be able to play it at this level.
What about the recent spike in Tommy John surgery? What is your thoughts?
Overuse injuries. You know, I think it's developing some really amazing arms. I mean, you see kids reach the major leagues, and every team has 3 or 4 guys who throw 98, 96, 99. Every team has a bunch of those guys. So it is developing, you know, guys' arm strength, but it's also blowing a lot of them up. Because the proliferation of travel teams, and I used to run a travel organization, and you know, I have 5 sons, so they've all played high levels of travel, and so you just have to. These coaches just need to be educated and understand to take it easy on the kids' arms while they're growing and developing, and that tissue is growing and stretching. And I just think that by the time they hit 19, 20 years old, they've got a lot of miles on their arm. And some make it, and it makes them really good, and others blow up, and you never hear from them again. So, just got to be careful.
Is it about like the certain pitches?
No, it's just the quantity of innings. You're only going to do it so long. You're only going to throw a baseball because it's taxing on your arm, and you're only going to do it so long before something breaks. You know, it's like your car. You're only going to drive your car so many miles before you got to replace the tires. Okay, you can't replace your arm. You know, and so. Eventually, some of those little connective tissues, those ligaments and tendons, they're going to give out. They're going to have little tears in there, and if you're not careful and you don't do your workouts and make sure you keep healthy, you're going to blow out. And I never did. I pitched since I was 8 years old, all the way to about 31, 32 years old. Never had a surgery in 9 years. I never missed a day on the DL because of my arm. My arm was as sound the day I quit playing. Excuse me. The day I quit playing is the day I started. I was one of the fortunate few. I never had surgery, never had anything like that. And I really attribute that to I did a lot of arm care kind of stuff, a lot of stretching, a lot of tubing. I really believed in that, and I was pretty faithful to do it before and after I threw.
Okay, for the last question, because I know your voice is giving out. What are you up to now?
I work at Genoa Bank. I'm a mortgage originator with Genoa Bank. I left, prior to that, I worked at Toledo Christian School as an athletic director and admissions guy. And coach, I've continued to coach high school baseball or basketball or something. My entire post-playing career, I've been coaching my kids and other kids around. So I continue to coach high school baseball at Genoa High School now. We've got some good young guys that I hope to hand the game off to as good as it was given to me.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. Greatly appreciate it. It's great hearing all the stories of times past. We'll link up again soon.
All right, anytime, I appreciate it.
All right, let's see. Oh, you got to tell everybody, since, you know, I'm trying to be like you and get some fame in Toledo, just tell everybody to subscribe to my channel. Just look at the camera and just tell them, just subscribe.
Hey, you got to subscribe to his channel. He's doing a great job. Got some great interviews coming up. Like it, subscribe, tell your friends about it, link it, put it on your Facebook page, get him some love.
All right, we'll see.